If you're trying to figure out what to charge for photography sessions and every answer you find feels too vague, this video is going to give you something more concrete. We're not talking theory today. We're talking about how to build a starting price that actually makes sense for where you are right now. Not borrowed from someone else, not pulled from thin air, built. One of the most common questions I hear from photographers who are early in their business is some version of, "What should I charge?" And it's a completely reasonable question. But the reason it feels so hard to answer isn't because pricing is mysterious, it's because most photographers are trying to solve it without a clear process. They look at what other photographers charge, they look at what they personally feel comfortable asking for. They pick a number somewhere in the middle, and then they feel uncertain about it from the moment they write it on their website. Because it wasn't built, it was borrowed. Borrowed pricing creates borrowed confidence, and borrowed confidence collapses the first time someone pushes back. So let's talk about why setting a starting price feels so complicated. The first reason is that beginners often don't know their actual costs. They think about gear, but they don't factor in time. And time is usually the most expensive thing in a photography business. Think about everything that goes into one session: the inquiry response, the back and forth to get it booked, the prep email, the shoot itself, the drive home, the file transfer and backup, the culling, the editing, the gallery delivery, the follow-up. That's not 1 hour. For most photographers, that full cycle is somewhere between 4 and 8 hours, sometimes more. And most beginners are pricing based on the shoot time only, which means they're giving away most of the work for free without realizing it. The second reason pricing feels hard is that beginners frequently tie pricing to skill level. I'm not good enough to charge that yet. And while skill does matter, this framing creates a moving target, because you will never feel good enough if good enough is the bar you're using. There will always be someone more skilled. There will always be more to learn. Waiting until you feel worthy of a certain rate means you'll be waiting for a long time. Skill matters, but skill is not the only thing pricing reflects. It reflects your time, your costs, your process, your reliability. All of that has value even when you're still developing. The third reason is that beginners often think of pricing as permanent. Like whatever they charge today will define them forever. It won't. Pricing is a living part of your business. It changes as you grow. What you charge in your first 6 months is not what you'll charge in year 3. And that's completely fine. You're not locking in a legacy, you're setting a starting point. The fourth reason, and this one is subtle, is that most photographers haven't defined what they're actually selling. Are you selling photos, an experience, a service, time? The answer shapes everything about how pricing works. Because you are not just selling images, you are selling a contained experience. From the first inquiry to the final gallery delivery, every touch point is part of what you're offering, and that full experience is worth more than just the files. When you start thinking about pricing through that lens, the number starts to make more sense. You're not asking someone to pay for a JPEG, you're asking them to pay for your time, your skill, your process, your communication, and your ability to make the whole thing feel easy and worth it. That's a different thing, and it's worth more. Now let me ask you something directly. When you picture your ideal client session, start to finish, how much time does it actually take you? Not just the shoot, everything. If you've never sat down and calculated that number, I'd really encourage you to do it before you price anything else. Because when you know your real-time investment, pricing becomes a math problem, not a feelings problem. And math problems are solvable. Comment below if you've ever actually done that calculation. Most people haven't. And that's usually where the undercharging starts. Now let's also talk about one more thing that makes starting prices hard to set: fear of being wrong. There's this quiet pressure to get pricing right the first time. Like if you set it too low, you'll be stuck there. Or if you set it too high, no one will book you. And that fear creates paralysis. So people either stay at a rate that doesn't make sense because changing it feels scary, or they never properly set one at all. Here's what I want you to hear about that. Setting a price is not a final decision. It's a hypothesis. You set it based on the best information you have right now. You test it, you observe what happens, you adjust. Every experienced photographer has done this multiple times. Pricing is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. And starting somewhere imperfect is infinitely better than staying paralyzed. In the next section, we're going to actually build something, a simple framework you can use to set a starting price that has a real reason behind it. Let's make this concrete. I'm going to walk you through a simple 4-part framework for building a starting price. This isn't the only way to approach pricing, but it gives you a foundation that makes sense, and one you can actually explain just so and tantanin interior to yourself and to clients. Part 1. Calculate your time cost. Pick one session type you want to price. Write down every step involved from first contact to final delivery. Estimate how long each step takes. Be honest here. Don't estimate how long you wish it took. Estimate how long it actually takes. Add all of those steps up. You now have a rough total time investment per session. Now assign an hourly value to that time. It doesn't have to be a high number, especially if you're just starting out, but it needs to be a real number, not 0. Multiply your total hours by that rate. That's your time cost baseline. Part 2. Add your direct costs. What does it cost you to deliver this specific session beyond your time? Think about gear depreciation if you want to factor it in. Software subscriptions divided by how many sessions you take each month. Travel if it applies. Any props, locations fees, or extras tied to this session type. These are real costs. They belong in your pricing. A lot of beginners treat these as invisible, but they're not invisible. They're just being absorbed by you, and absorbing your own business costs is a fast path to burnout. Part 3. Add your overhead. What does it cost you to run your business each month? This might include your editing software, your gallery delivery platform, any business accounts or tools, website hosting, marketing costs if you have them. Add those up and divide by how many sessions you take per month. That's your per session overhead contribution. Every session needs to carry a share of what it costs to keep your business running. When you don't factor this in, your business slowly bleeds money even when you're booking regularly. Part 4, add a margin for growth. Not a huge amount, just something that accounts for slower months, for unexpected costs, for the education and tools you'll keep investing in, for the fact that not every month is equally full. A small margin built into your pricing creates a buffer, and that buffer is what keeps things from feeling desperate when things slow down. When you add all 4 parts together, you have a floor price, a number that makes mathematical sense for your business. That's your starting point, not your final price forever. Your floor, and having a floor changes everything, because instead of guessing from the middle, you're building from the bottom up. Now here's where I want to do a pause and reframe. A lot of photographers will do this calculation and then feel like the number is too high to actually charge, and they'll be tempted to ignore the math. Don't. If your honest calculation produces a number that feels uncomfortable, that's important information. It might mean your time estimate is off, or your overhead is higher than you realized, or your expected capacity isn't realistic. Those are things worth examining and adjusting. But the adjustment should happen in the inputs, not by just deciding to ignore the math because the output feels scary. When you ignore the math and charge less than your floor, you're not being generous. You're just paying the difference yourself. In time, in energy, in unpaid hours, that's not sustainable. Now let's talk about market positioning briefly. Once you have your floor, it's worth understanding the context you're operating in, not to copy other photographers, not to race to the bottom, but to understand where your offer sits. Look at what photographers in your area and your niche are charging. Get a sense of the range. If your floor sits below the market average for your area, you have room to price higher. If your floor sits above what the market typically supports, you need to think about what justifies that, or whether your cost structure needs adjusting somewhere. Either way, you're making an informed decision instead of guessing. Let's also talk about introductory pricing. Some photographers starting out offer a temporarily lower rate while they build their portfolio and refine their process. That can be a reasonable strategy, but only if it's intentional. The difference between intentionally reduced pricing and undercharging is clarity. If you know exactly why you're charging, what you're charging, and you have a plan for when and how it changes, that's strategy. If you're charging low because you're not sure what else to do, that's drift. Strategy is sustainable. Drift is exhausting. So if you're going to price lower while you're building, make an actual decision about it. Say to yourself, I'm going to charge this rate for this many sessions or this many months. Then I'm going to raise it. Put a marker on the calendar. Make it real. Otherwise, you'll still be at that introductory rate 2 years later, wondering why your business feels stuck. Now, let me also say something about raising prices, because the fear of raising prices trips up a lot of photographers. Here's the honest truth. You will almost certainly lose some clients when you raise your rates. That's not failure. That's your market recalibrating. The clients who were with you at a lower rate are not automatically the right clients for where your business is going. Some of them will follow you, some won't. Both outcomes are okay. Raising your prices as your skill, experience, and process improve is not greedy. It's accurate. You're pricing the current version of your business, not the version from a year ago. In the final section, we're going to talk about what to do once you have a number, and how to hold it without shrinking every time someone questions it. You've done the work. You've built a price that has a real reason behind it. Now the hard part, saying it out loud without backpedaling. This is where a lot of photographers fall apart, not because the price is wrong, because they haven't internalized the reasoning yet. And when you haven't internalized the reasoning, the number feels arbitrary. And arbitrary numbers are hard to hold. Here's what changes that. Understanding why your number makes sense. When you know the math behind your price, when you know it covers your time and your costs and your overhead and a reasonable margin, you're not defending a guess. You're standing behind a decision that makes logical sense. That's a very different posture. And clients feel the difference. When a client asks, can you do it for less? Your internal experience changes completely depending on whether you understand your pricing. If you don't understand it, that question feels like an attack. You immediately start calculating whether you can survive on less. You start wondering if you're overcharging. You feel guilty for having a rate at all. If you do understand it, that question lands differently. You know your floor. You know what you can and can't absorb. You can make a clear, calm decision, not a panicked one. Now let's talk about discounting. Occasional flexibility is not the end of the world. There are real situations where a small adjustment makes sense. A returning client, a referral situation, a specific context that genuinely warrants it. But habitual discounting is a different thing. When you discount every time someone asks, a few things happen. You train clients that your rate is negotiable. You undermine the signal your pricing sends about your value. And you slowly erode your own confidence in your number. Because every discount is a small vote against it. Habitual discounting almost always points back to not being clear on why the price was set, which is why the work we did in Section 2 matters so much. When the number has a reason, you can hold it. Not perfectly, not without occasional exceptions, but with clarity. Now let me address the fear of rejection directly, because this is underneath a lot of pricing anxiety for photographers. When someone says your rate is more than they were hoping to spend, it doesn't feel like a budget issue. It feels personal. Like your work isn't worth it. Like they saw through you, like you asked for too much, and I want to offer a different frame for that. A client who can't fit your rate into their budget is not rejecting your value. They're communicating a constraint. Those are different things. Their budget is not a verdict on your worth. It's information about whether you're the right fit for each other right now. And not every mismatch needs to be solved. Sometimes the right answer to a budget conversation is simply, I understand this isn't the right fit right now. Not a discount, not an apology, just clarity. The clients who are right for your business will say yes at your rate. The ones who aren't will find someone whose rate works for them. Both of those outcomes are fine. Let me do the reflective beat here. Think about the last time you felt genuinely uncomfortable quoting your rate. What was happening underneath that? Was it fear of rejection? Was it uncertainty about whether your work was good enough? Was it guilt about asking for money at all? Those feelings are real, and they're worth paying attention to, but they're not a reason to undercharge. They're a signal that something needs to be worked through. Maybe that's mindset work. Maybe that's getting clearer on your offer. Maybe it's having more sessions under your belt so you trust your delivery. Whatever it is, the work is worth doing because confidence in your pricing doesn't come from believing harder. It comes from understanding more clearly, and understanding is something you can build. This is one of those areas where working with someone directly makes a meaningful difference. When you're inside your own business, the blind spots are hard to see. You don't know which assumptions are holding you back. You don't know whether the thing making you uncomfortable is a real problem or just unfamiliarity. A real conversation with someone who can look at your specific situation helps you see that clearly. If that's where you are right now, you're building your pricing, you have some sessions under your belt, and you want someone to help you see what you're missing. Mentoring might be the thing that moves the needle. The 5-lesson mentoring plan is designed for photographers exactly at this stage. We work through your actual situation, not a generic framework, your numbers, your hesitations, your specific business. You can find all the details at savvyshutterbug.com. No pressure. But if you've been spinning on this for a while, a real conversation is usually faster than another year of figuring it out alone. Let's close simply. Pricing doesn't have to feel like a mystery. It's a calculation. And calculations can be learned. Build the number with intention, understand what it's connected to, hold it with clarity, and adjust it as your business grows. That's the whole system. Not complicated, just requires doing the work instead of guessing. Subscribe if you're following this series. Next week, we're talking about why selling feels so awkward for photographers and what to actually do about it. I'll see you then.